Now, switching gears, I guess I should have talked more about this in the previous segment, but back to Indiana, which is not your beat, but just from because you have covered it, and just from the common sense standpoint, even if Indiana loses out, I do not see any change happening. And I know that the fans keep getting more and more revved up with each loss, understandably. But unless this were to come from Mike Woodson, I cannot imagine a change coming, and especially from his demeanor that he has no plans to go anywhere as of this moment, and so I expect there to be no change in that regard, because that would require a lot of Indiana, and I just don't think that they're willing to put the program through that. At this time, which the response could be, well, they're putting it through something else. But I just don't see that happening.
I don't. I mean, I think I kind of think he's got it. Again, he did take him to the tournament the first 2 years, and so this season is becoming, it's in the sense that a basketball season can be a disaster, because a disaster is a word that means something much darker and damaging than anything that happens in sports. But this is about as bad as year 3 could have gone. But I kind of do think he has earned the right to try to fix this mess, I guess is the best way to put it. I mean, I think this year, finally told him he was able to kind of paper over whatever inexperience he had in terms of getting into, how college was going to be different. And this is kind of all of that piling up on him at once. And so I think he's got to at least be given a year to say, all right, I figured out all my mistakes. Let me address them, and see if I can get that right. I think, by virtue of, I think getting the last 2 teams maybe further than they belonged. I think he has earned the right to take that. There's nothing, more and more, there's nothing good that can be said about this year. There's a handful of guys that maybe got better. Not a handful, 1 or 2 guys who got better. Malik Renew, I think, obviously has made real strides that I'm sure on some level Mike Woodson could be credited for that, after not having as good of a freshman year as maybe a lot of us thought he would. And, Ware has been at least statistically pretty good. But, there's just this otherwise it's just a mess. And so it's like, all right, well, do you run him off before he's had an opportunity to change that, considering what all goes into that? It's not just the buyout money you have to pay. It's moving on from, an alum after. I mean, you remember how, like, I get that some of, them have soured on him since then, guys who didn't play in his era. I know Brian Evans went on, I think with Watford and Elston. Which is wild that Watford and Elston have a podcast. Just, I'm so old. But like,
they were both Derek or Brian Evans was on. They did post game along with Joe Hillman with us. I think they were ours was the first show that they came on and really expressed their feelings. That's normally something you don't see as former players really being so outspoken
with a former player. IU former players have not pulled punches when it's come to anyone in between Knight and Woodson. Like, they have been very clear in saying, they should have got an IU guy. They should have got a Knight guy. They obviously there was a period when they thought they should have just brought Bobby back. But I did not expect there to be that much of this quickly, considering just how excited all of them were to be like, oh, finally, this is the, this is not passing of the torch, but that we're finally getting over this. And, like, this is a big step in that direction, is to go, finally, we've been telling you all these years to go get somebody who played under Knight. And the fact that it's not working, the fact that some of those guys have soured more quickly, but I'm sure not all of them have. I'm sure not all of them are going to be super excited about the idea of IU moving on from Woodson after, one really, really bad year. So I think there's too much risk to get, and I understand you're going to say, well, people will say, well, there's risk on the other side. If you just have another year like this, how much more buried are you? But I do think that I could see just a lot of risk on this side. It's always the case of, I think, coaches increasingly look at it and say, man, you go to Indiana, they'll run you out after 3 years. Like you don't have any time to get that program right, and they're further away than they think they are. And so you're going to go in there and you're going to start a project, and it's not going to work as fast as you want, and you're going to get fired. So don't go there. Like I think that's increasingly become the reputation of Indiana, whether that's fair or not. It's heading that way. And so I think if you run Woodson off after he made the tournament the first 2 years, had a really bad third year, you're going to increase that reputation. You're going to create some, at least some level of disunity among the alums. It is comfy, Brian. Thank you very much. It was a smart decision. My wife liked this one. It's really good. But yeah, no, I think I think there's just more risk in making that move at this point. But he's had a really bad year. He's had an unequivocally bad year. But I think he deserves the right to fix it. The opportunity to fix it, not the right. That right sounds like he's owed it, but like I think he deserves the opportunity to fix it and show that he understands what's wrong. I think a lot of people think he doesn't see it based on the press conferences, but you got to get an off season to really look at it and say, this is where we're screwed up, and fix it. And I think he deserves that opportunity to really put that into motion. If you can't figure it out by next year, then yeah, I think you have to make a change.